Tim, I'd really like to ask you more about public speaking because you've done this on pretty big stages. And I know that can seem really daunting for a lot of people. It's always enough to get my heart pounding when I stand up in a big stage, though I've done it quite a few times. What is the best approach for introverts? Maybe we'll start out with small meetings and work our way up to the big stage.
For people who are listening and you're listening to this now, and tomorrow you want to go into a meeting and you want to all of a sudden do public speaking better. Sounds impossible, but if you want to do just one thing that will help you become a better public speaker tomorrow, it is simply to just speak slower. Just speak slower. Don't change what you want to say. Don't change how you say it, just like I'm doing right now. Just simply speak slower. I think what you find that when you actually speak slower, then, the thoughts that are in your head, they actually have time to exit your mouth. It's not as if your brain is on accelerator mode and your mouth is just not catching up with the speed that the words are coming out. It's not as fast as you would like it. And that does a few things. Number one, it gives you time to actually think about the words that you want to say and how you want to say it. It lets you pause. It lets you create emphasis. Because when you're speaking, the other thing that you can do is to vary your speaking speed, like I'm doing right now. I'm speaking faster. And then when it comes to a very important point that you want to land, that you want people to really focus on and listen to, again, that can be a point where you slow down. That can be a point where you pause. And simply by doing these two things, by speaking slower, and then also varying your speaking speed. Sometimes you're speaking fast, and then sometimes you are speaking slower. I think what you find is that it creates interest. You pull people in to the way that you speak. You're not changing the things that you're saying. You're still saying the very same things. But just by speaking slower and varying your speaking speed, I think just by doing these two things, you will naturally pull people in more. You become a better public speaker already. And then everything else is really about practice. Another thing you can do in meetings, which I don't see a lot of people doing, is show and tell. Why is it that so many meetings are verbal only? You could be in person, you could be on a Zoom call, you could be on a Google Meets call. But why are so many meetings just using verbal communication? You could share your screen. You can show a slide deck. You can show a design or piece of code that you have written, a product that you've made. Why aren't people showing and telling more? I found that when you use different senses, not just verbal, but also visual, the more senses that you use, the better communicator you are. So the more you can show and tell, the better. And when it comes to meetings specifically, it might seem counterintuitive, but if you're quieter in nature, you are also a very good listener. At least I've seen from quieter people. They're great at listening. And you might not think this is true, but some of the best facilitators that I know are the best listeners. If you're actually leading a group, you're facilitating a workshop, you're facilitating a meeting, I see that role as like the driver of the bus, and everybody else in that meeting is a passenger. And your job is, you have one job and one job only, which is to get to the destination on time and on agenda. And quiet people are really good at this because they are listening to the conversation. They are guiding how people actually, what they should be talking about and focusing on in that right moment. You don't have to have all of the answers. They do. So if you want to be in a position in a meeting and you're quieter in nature, but you also want to participate and to lead and to help these people get to that one destination, then it might seem counterintuitive at first, but being that facilitator, the person that drives that meeting, can be a very good way for you to help everyone get to the outcome that they want.
It's a really good insight, and something that I've seen. There are certain roles or even jobs that you could take. Program management is one that comes to mind. You can start earlier in your career and get experience facilitating meetings, and you're all the while developing leadership skills. I probably take strange enjoyment in facilitating meetings, because there's something I just love about synthesizing what's happening in a discussion, just summarizing, like maybe recapping, like I might be doing. And then you come in with another question that moves the group forward. And that's leadership. That is bringing the group along and moving them forward and driving the bus, in your analogy.
And you wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't listening. You wouldn't be able to do that if all you're doing is talking at people. And I think most people don't recognize it as a really important trait, that, being able to listen, being quieter in nature is a superpower, because not everyone can do it.
Yeah, good stuff. We're working our way up to speaking now in a conference, and you're gearing up. You're pushing yourself in the 4 Ps framework to go out and speak. So what's your advice now?
If you're listening to this and you're preparing for a conference, the biggest misconception is that a conference talk is just a bigger meeting. You're not going to be reading from a slide in front of an audience of 200, 2,000. This is a performance, and it's a high-stakes performance, because unless you're very comfortable speaking in large groups, this is a high-stakes event, and you want to be doing all of the 4 Ps, not just one of them. Most conference talks, they are monologues. They might last 10, 15, 20 minutes, 45 minutes. They are monologue. And the monologue can be practiced. To give you an example, a talk that I used to give was called Design Leadership for Introverts. It was a 25-minute talk. When I was preparing that talk, my commute to work at the time was 30 minutes. And every day for a good 3 weeks, I will be driving to work. And each way, I'll simply be giving that talk out loud as I was driving. I was memorizing that script of what I wanted to say from one slide to another. At the time, I was driving. I wasn't second screening. I was looking at my slide deck. I was simply practicing and going through the entire talk from memory. And it was this level of practice that allowed me to be comfortable enough on stage, because one of my biggest fears of being on stage was actually to forget what I wanted to say and to start making up stuff on the spot. To be fair, on stage, I still had a script. I had my presenter notes in case I needed them. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to be so comfortable with what I was going to say on that stage that it'll almost be muscle memory. So that if something happens during that conference, during that talk, something happens within the crowd, I can be present, I can react, I can change, I can adapt. But none of that will be possible if I was not confident in my material and the things I want to say beforehand. And mind you, this kind of preparation takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of time. You don't want to be doing this for your weekly meeting, for example, unless it's super high stakes. But preparing for this kind of level of attention, this kind of scale, this kind of high stakes, you use it in the smallest of scenarios. And because it's important, you don't want to fail. And it takes a lot of effort.
One follow-up question on that. When you are practicing, are you memorizing word for word, or are you allowing the language to vary a little bit?
The way that you write and the way that you see things naturally, they might be two different things. As you develop your script for the talk, for example, you might find that as you're saying things, new ideas will come up. You might find that new words that better express what you're saying will come up. And it's only through saying these things out loud that you actually can iterate your script and to make the actual talk better. So oftentimes I find when I'm helping people prepare for these events, they start off with a written script and they stick to it the whole way through. But I find that if you actually say it out loud, you practice, you might find a better way of saying those things. And then that just makes your talk a whole lot better. So do it to practice. get used to the words coming out of your mouth, and also to use this as an opportunity to sharpen and make things better.
That's good. And as you do that, these words are more natural and probably you're more likely to remember them because of that.
Yes, definitely. And new stories might even come out. New points will come up all the time.
Excellent. Another thing for introverts, and your book is The Quiet Achiever. If you're listening, you're likely achievement oriented. You want to have an influence, you want to grow and become more visible in your organization. So when you're quiet, how do you go about that in doing it in a way that's authentic to you?
I think a lot of people think they want to be visible and they want to be a lot more seen. That those opportunities only happen in meetings. When you find the biggest meeting with your boss, and always having the opportunity to speak and for them to see you speaking at those times. So a lot of people think that that's a way to be visible. But who says that's the only way? I found that, especially when you work with teams around the world, one of the best ways I found to actually be a whole lot more visible was to record short videos of myself. Who says everything has to be a meeting? I used to do fortnightly, weekly updates of the design team, everything that we worked on. I would do that in a short video, less than 5 minutes. I wouldn't go through everything that we've done. I would just go through the highlights and the key accomplishments. And for details, they can always click on the link and they look at details of the work after. And I would share that on Slack, which is a messaging platform. And those videos, they've gone out across the company, across people in different time zones. And people are consuming that content at the time when they are at their best. Not a meeting. They're consuming it when they are at their best. That might be at 7 a.m. in the morning. That might be 9:45 p.m. before they go to bed. But you don't have to be in a live synchronous meeting for people to see and hear about your work. And strangely enough, there will be people watching the stuff that you make who have never seen you before, who have never heard of your name, but it's because of these things that you're posting out there that they learn about you. Video is a very engaging medium. Don't think about writing a 2-page update of all the things that you've done, because maybe these days nobody has time for that. They just want bite-sized information. I found this to be a really effective way of actually communicating and being more visible.
I really love this advice. You have been in some larger companies. I've been in smaller companies, but I think it applies even for smaller companies because people are inevitably in different time zones. And just the fact that you can consume it when you actually have a minute to give it some attention seems like a huge advantage.
The problem why people don't do this very often is because they are super uncomfortable listening to their own voice and seeing themselves on camera. That's why people don't do it. I wrote about it in the book that I called it the hump. Like the hump is kind of like the tipping point, and it actually happens. The hump is the tipping point where all of a sudden watching yourself on video, listening to your own voice is not uncomfortable anymore. And it's a great way to actually practice public speaking, because how do you know you're doing well if you can't see yourself speak and hear yourself speak for real? If everything that's stopping you from doing it is because of your personal discomfort, I found in my experience that it's almost like exposure therapy, where you might be seeing yourself and hearing yourself so often that you're just a talking head on the screen. I think if you can get yourself to that point, then the opportunities are limitless. You can do so much more practice if you can do that. I'm
telling you, everyone, I just got over this hump. There's nothing like watching for yourself and editing yourself 10 hours worth of video. I've got 10 podcasts out, done video editing on all of these. I'm over the hump now. It's possible. It can be excruciating at first, though. Absolutely.
But the nice thing is that, for example, I found that I always said a lot. And I always, for some reason, just started scratching my chest. And I don't know why I did that. But I never knew that I did those small little tics, those little habits, until I started rewatching those videos of myself. And I didn't like them. So then what I noticed, I can edit and iterate and improve.